This is Wildcat Country.
It's only right. The ball's in his hands. A milestone victory for Arizona. Simon says championship.
All the inside scoop on U of A athletics.
It's up for the end zone. Arizona has scored the touchdown. Wildcats win.
Let's go to work, brother.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country, powered by Backcourt Marketing. Know a business that's not doing social media right? Refer them to Backcourt Marketing and get rewarded. Check out backcourtmarketing.com. Eric Cohn and Shane Dale with you for yet another week where, well, we know what happened against Oregon. Shane, I know that it was your anniversary, so happy belated anniversary. You did not get a chance to see the game live, but we'll get your thoughts here momentarily. We also have a huge show that I want to promo right off the top. Our buddy Jeff Dean, the voice of the Wildcats, going to join us momentarily to talk about his thoughts from the announcer's booth on football and basketball, since it was Media Day when we recorded this. Speaking of Media Day, you had a chance to sit down with Steve Robinson, the new assistant coach for Tommy Lloyd and the men's basketball team. So we'll hear from him. And then our friend Megan Coghlan from Backcourt Marketing will join us to make some picks in the final segment. But Shane, you had mentioned before we went on air that you tuned into, or you checked your phone on your anniversary date, and you noticed that the score was Oregon 24, Arizona 19. What was going through your head when you saw that score?
I checked it a couple times, and it was 24-7, I think, the first time. And I thought, well, that looks about right. Although I was actually surprised it wasn't worse. And then I come back and say, okay, well, let's see what the damage is, and then just 24-19, and you got a fleeting thought that maybe this is going to be 2014 all over again, and of course that didn't happen. But I went back and watched it, or watched most of the game, and I think that I read what people's thoughts were about Jordan McLeod specifically on Twitter, and then watched to see if I would agree, and I do. He made some great plays that the other quarterbacks couldn't make, especially with his feet. Like, Gunnar Cruz is more of a pocket guy. He also made some mistakes. He played a little bit of hero ball. My big takeaway is that I'd rather have a quarterback who is making mistakes that are correctable versus just doesn't have the ability. And I think with Will Plummer, it's more the latter. I think he's not a starting Power 5 quarterback. Seems like a nice guy and a good team leader and all that, but just not a very good quarterback, at least not for a Power 5 team. Jordan McLeod, I think, certainly could be. I think he could be. He needs to make some better decisions. And Jed Fish, I think, did a great job of outlining every interception that he threw. And it's kind of funny to say, well, aside from the 5 interceptions, he looked pretty good. I think when people say that, they mean, okay, this stuff is correctable, as opposed to when we watch Will Plummer, we're just, groaning the whole time because we know it's not going to get much better. Well, with Jordan McLeod, it certainly could. I think he just needs to trust his playmakers more. And it's something that, when I was at ABC 15, I did a chat with Manny Wilkins, who I know everyone and listening to this program doesn't like, but I did ask him because Jaden Daniels was about to take over for him at ASU. And I asked him, what advice did you give Jaden Daniels? And he said the number one piece of advice he gave is to check down as your friend. In other words, let your playmakers make plays. Arizona, I would say, in terms of backs and receivers, is at least in the middle of the Pac-12 talent-wise. The quarterback hasn't been there. The offensive line hasn't been. But they have a ton of playmakers. And get them the ball. I know that blocking is a whole other issue, but go for the easy throw. And even take a sack if you have to, like Gunnar Cruz did against BYU. He took too many, but I would rather him take a sack than try to throw an interception 20, 30 yards downfield. So promising. I think we felt the same way against BYU, so we're guarding our hearts closely. But I do like that the bye week comes this week because it gives Jordan McLeod more time to get familiar with the playbook and time for UCLA. I think I saw enough to believe that he should be the guy going forward. And I'd like to see what he can do with 2 more weeks of practice as the QB1 going into UCLA. It's not a game as of now I would expect Arizona to win, but I certainly expect them to be more competitive than they were against San Diego State, their first home game of the season.
I would tend to agree with that. And now is the perfect time, speaking of home games, to bring in the voice of the Wildcats and the host of the morning show on ESPN 1490 in Tucson, Jeff Dean, our buddy who we are always glad to have on the show. And Jeff, I don't want to start on a negative note, but the 2 times that we have all been to Arizona Stadium this year have been a train wreck. From your spot in the announcer's booth, I guess I just want to get this question out of the way early. which was worse for you sitting up there calling the game on the PA? Was it against ASU in the 70-7 debacle or the NAU loss? Which was more painful to you?
Well, it was definitely the ASU game. That game was over 3 minutes into the game. I knew that we had very little chance of competing in that game to begin with. Just was hoping that a team full of emotion would be able to find a way to compete. Maybe ASU stubs their toe, something like that. It's 21-0 before we can even figure out, who's going to be playing that day. It seemed like, and that game was over, and they just continued to pour it on. And as you're sitting there, and you can hear already the people on social media, you can hear your buddies, you can feel the text messages going off in your pocket. I mean, it's starting already. Against NAU, Arizona, there was always that opportunity for them to score a touchdown, catch lightning in a bottle, win the football game. It didn't happen. I think it was after the game that I realized that things were worse after the NAU game than after the ASU game. So, certainly I didn't feel like there's been a lower point in this program's history. But like I said before the season began, things tend to get worse before they get better. And at that point, I didn't think it could get any worse. So I think what we saw last week was better than what we saw in the previous three.
Jeff, I can just share my thoughts on Jordan McLeod. What are yours?
I had similar. I guess I had a similar assessment of his interceptions and his play as Jed Fish did in his press conference. The one main thing I think that I had a difference in opinion between myself and Jed Fish was the interception that he threw at the front of the end zone in that corner pylon situation. That's a ball that Josh Allen can complete, that John Elway can complete. You have to have an absolute rifle to be able to throw a ball to the front pylon like that. You have to make a conscious decision that maybe my arm isn't up to snuff, and you throw that ball to the back pylon, so there's only one person that can get it, which is your receiver. So it was a poor decision, but it was based on his lack of arm strength. There's nobody that you can't just float a ball to the front pylon and expect it to not get intercepted. So overall, though, look, you can't deny the fact that Arizona moved the football a lot better. I still don't think Oregon's defense is anything to write home about, but it is Oregon nonetheless, and a team that has prided themselves ever since Mario Cristobal got there at controlling the line of scrimmage. And let's face it, for about 75% of that game, Arizona controlled both lines of scrimmage. So while I am encouraged by what I saw as a whole, I'm even more excited about the fact that Arizona is having their bye week right now. It's the perfect time. I spent like 30 minutes on my show earlier this week on my radio show talking about why this is the perfect time for Arizona's bye week to come. And it's not just about learning the playbook, as you had mentioned, Shane. There are so many other things in play when you install a new quarterback that have to happen for a football team to gel and get their chemistry going. It's more than just the playbook. There's a lot of other things in play.
I look over the first four games, and I feel like I'm crazy just even to think this, but collectively I feel like the defense hasn't been that bad. And especially against Oregon, Arizona gave a pick six. It wasn't the defense's fault, and 5 turnovers. And I think all things considered, that wasn't too bad. I mean, even against NAU, there was a pick six in that game too. They should have scored more than 21 points against NAU. Your overall thoughts on where the defense is right now, and maybe a couple individual guys who you've been impressed with?
I think the defense has performed way above what we expect them to perform at. You hit the nail right on the head. They give up a pick six in 3 of their 4 games this year, leading to points that defense gets dinged for. NCAA doesn't sit there and say, oh, well, there was 2 pick sixes in that game, so we need to drop that average. So when you look at Arizona giving up whatever it is, 25.4 points per game, the defense hasn't given up that many points. The offense has given up 21 points this year. So the defense, if you look at just defensive scores, Arizona's right there at the top of the Pac-12 as far as defensive numbers. Rushing defense could be better. However, they played a team in BYU who was going to run the football a lot. They played San Diego State against Greg Bell, who's an all-conference running back and will be playing on Sundays. He'll be probably a third or a fourth round pick in the NFL draft. And then you played Oregon. Ohio State couldn't stop Oregon either. So I think the defense has played exceptionally well, all things considered. When you look at individual players, I think I mean, obviously, the way that Christian Roland Wallace has played, he's kind of the one guy. When I talk to an NFL scout, he's kind of the one guy on the defense that looks like a full, like an outright NFL player. But I'll tell you what, the guy on the other side of the field, Isaiah Rutherford, has been lights out this year. I believe he has 13 targets on the year and only 4 completions against him, which is pretty darn good. I think that's like 4th or 5th in the Pac-12 right now. So Isaiah Rutherford has been a really nice surprise transfer, of course, from Notre Dame. And then I think the other guy that I just am really enjoying watching right now is Mo Diallo. And I like the way Mo brings a lot of intensity to the field. They can line him up in multiple gaps. They can line him up. He can play single gap. He can play 1-5. He can play the 3 gap. He can play 5. They can line him up outside on a 7 technique. He's a very multiple player, and we've seen what he can do knifing in and getting into the backfield. His first play of the game against Oregon resulted in a safety. So I'm really liking what I see out of Mo Diallo. Actually, honestly, the defensive line as a whole, I feel like has played really well. Jalen Harris isn't getting the sacks and the numbers that we're expecting, out of him this year, but the defense isn't getting those sacks as a whole either. They're kind of getting beaten in that aspect. The teams aren't dropping back into 7-step drops and giving Arizona time to get that. So Jalen Harris, I think, has played exceptionally well. He's been asked to do a lot of things. He was covering running backs and tight ends coming out of the backfield. Keon Bars, I think, is the highest rated player on the team in terms of Pro Football Focus. So he's played extremely well. J.B. Brown almost had himself a pick 6 against Oregon on Saturday night. So the defensive line is playing exceptionally well. And then Anthony Pandy is a tackling machine. He goes on, he's an unheralded player on this team. And then Trayshawn Hayward, obviously the transfer from Western Michigan. He's playing extremely well also.
All right, Jeff, grade Jedd Fisch's play calling on the offensive side of the football. And I know it's tough because, he showed some promise with a better quarterback, but through the first 4 games, what letter grade would you give Jedd Fisch for his play calls?
I would give it an incomplete, to be honest with you, because I think we've just seen so many different Jedd Fisch is trying to feel this out himself. He has not cemented himself as one type of a play caller over the other. I feel like the balance, considering how poorly we've run the football, I feel like the balance of play selection has been pretty good, considering we've been down in a lot of games and he's continued to try to run the football. It's obviously going to skew to the passing game, and Arizona has been quite good at throwing the football this year. Play calling in the BYU game was, I thought, early it was really bad. Later on in that game, it got better. The play calling against San Diego State, I don't even know what to think about that game because it was 3 and out. I mean, just absolutely terrible. The NAU game, they bring in another new quarterback, to start that game in Will Plummer, and I don't think they quite knew what to do with him, whether to throw short passes, swing passes, deep passes, run the ball, quarterback options. And I think what you saw with Jordan McLeod on Saturday night was a little bit more indicative of what you'd like to see Jedd Fisch call. And I know that he was getting a lot of guff from the announcers who are absolutely terrible. The ESPN announcers, Dave Fleming and Rod Gilmore, who were on that call, they were terrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
They kept chastising him for running boundary side jet sweeps. Well, I don't know why they keep running jet sweeps to the boundary side. Why do they keep running jet sweeps to the boundary side? And then they run the play at the goal line where Stanley Berryhill was going to throw the football, and you realize, they were setting up a play. That's why they kept running boundary side jet sweeps, and it's just like, let's just see the game play out, and then let's talk about the play calling and such. So I thought that Oregon's play calling was much better. So I'm going to give Jedd an incomplete because he hasn't had a starting quarterback start for more than one game this year, and I feel like he's still starting to kind of feel himself out. So I think you're going to see in the final 8 games, you're going to see it get a lot better.
Before we transition to basketball, I have one last question, and once again, I apologize for it not being the most positive. Will Arizona win a football game this season, in your opinion?
Yes.
How many?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, they could win 6 of their last 8 games, depending on You look at college football this year. Top 25 teams have been beaten 25 times already this year. There's only 2 teams that are in the top 10 to start the season that are still in the top 10. FCS teams have come up and bitten other Power 5 teams. The Pac-12 is a disaster. They cannibalize themselves every single year, regardless.
Sure do.
Washington has traditionally not played well in Tucson. UCLA is, passing defense-wise, might be one of the worst in the entire country in pass defense. Run defense, they're solid. Pass defense, they're giving up 332 yards a game, I think, in the air, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's beyond anything that Chip Kelly can be happy with. Colorado literally cannot move the football past the 50-yard line. They can't get first downs. These are all situations where Arizona has an opportunity. And then who knows? The NCAA is talking about they're going to start interviewing coaches and staff over at ASU starting as early as next month. If that game rolls around and they've had to fire 2 coaches and the NCAA is still snooping around the campus, who knows what is going to be in the minds of those players in the final game of the season.
I would be lying if I said that thought hadn't already crept into my head. It would be quite the fitting way to end what's been an awful start to the season. And at this point, I reserve the right to change my mind, Eric. But at this point, I would pick Arizona to win at Colorado. Just saying. We'll see if I change my mind about that. We'll see what happens against UCLA. Let me transition to the hoops, Jeff. Red Blue game coming up. Fans back at McHale Center. You got to be stoked. Tell me what you're thinking going into that one.
I'm pumped. I'm really pumped. I love this team. This front court is going to be absolutely awesome. You look at the amount of talent in the front court, of the 3, 4, 5 positions on the court, and there are guys who played in the offseason for another country that won medals at the Olympics. There are guys who were the best player for their team that didn't get to an Olympic medal round, but they were the best player on their team in the under-19 leagues in FIBA. You look at the amount of size that they're bringing, athleticism that they're bringing. I got 3 text messages earlier today, in fact, just within the last couple hours. The 3 text messages that I got were from individual people that were commenting on how big Omar Ballo is. He's huge. 7'1", 270 pounds. He's massive. He hasn't played at Gonzaga because there were consecutive All-Americans playing the center position at Gonzaga. So he's going to transfer here, and he's going to be our backup center to Christian Coloco, who is one of the more athletic shot blockers in the entire country now. He was number 2 in the Pac-12 in block shots last year, behind a guy who you may have heard of, Evan Mobley, who's going to be a pretty good NBA player. The front court at the power forward position, Kim Aiken comes in, former defensive player of the year in his conference. Then you've got guys like Azuolas Tubelis, who at 6'11" and 240 pounds can run the floor. He's expanded his shooting range. He can now shoot the 3 with relative confidence. He led Lithuania in scoring and rebounding in the under-19 league this offseason. You got Ben Mathurin, who turned into one of Canada's better players this offseason. He's put on some muscle. I don't think you're going to recognize Ben. He has gotten pretty thick in the offseason. He's really rounded out, gotten some muscle development. Chris Rounds has been working with him really hard. And Dalen Terry, same way. Dalen Terry has put on quite a bit of muscle this offseason. And he's a kid that just continues to work hard. Sean Miller talked about what a hard worker he is, or what a diligent worker he is. And having a guy like Dalen Terry on the team, who's also a secondary ball handler, is going to be huge. I know that Tommy Lloyd mentioned that Kirk Kriisa is going to be the dominant one guard this year. He's going to be the point this year. Looking forward to seeing him with a full off season of practice, and then getting him. When I got to see him for 8 games last year, and I don't think he knew exactly where to fit in. The team had already turned out to be the team that they were going to be by the time he got on the court. And then, of course, Pelle Larsson coming off the foot injury, the transfer from Utah. If you haven't seen him shoot, he's just a natural. I think he's an 87% aggregate shooter between free throws, 2-point field goal. I mean, he's just a remarkable shooter. So when you look at possibly getting him back in late November, Arizona will have some shooting power as well. And this team, Tommy Lloyd's scheme is going to be fast. The ball's not going to hit the floor. There's going to be pass, shoot. They're going to run. It's going to be a lot of fun out there at McHale Center. I'm looking forward to Saturday and to all the games moving forward. I know the times just got released today, and the TV listings and such. So excited about that.
it seems like Tommy Lloyd has really received universal praise from Wildcat fans as far as the staff he's put together, the guys he was able to keep and the guys he's brought on. Guy we got coming up next here is Steve Robinson, who's got as much experience and a lot of recruiting success, I would say, as any assistant in college hoops. What are your thoughts on Steve specifically?
It's one of those things like when Arizona announced that Tommy Lloyd was going to be the head coach, when people had talked to me over the last few years and they had asked me, who's going to be the next head coach, and I didn't want to hear that. I'm not trying to hear that kind of thing. I don't want to hear about Sean Miller being fired. But if somebody had held a gun to my head, I would tell them, I would say Tommy Lloyd, and they would look at me like, who are you talking about? They had no idea who I was talking about. And, I knew, and I would sit there and I would tell them and stuff. So when Tommy Lloyd was announced as the head coach, I was completely elated. He was the only name that I even wanted to entertain as the next head coach at Arizona. To get Steve Robinson as his assistant is kind of like the cherry on top. When Steve Robinson's name was announced as the potential and then eventual hire as Arizona's assistant, I was like, wait, he doesn't have a job? Like, I didn't realize that the entire staff at North Carolina had been released when Hubert Davis took over, that he hired all former players to be on his staff. I met Steve when he was here, when they were here with North Carolina at the Final Four in Glendale. And, the response from players love working, playing for Steve, working with Steve. And there was a lot of people that were upset in Chapel Hill when Steve Robinson wasn't retained as an assistant on that staff. People were really upset about that. So I am elated to have a guy like Steve Robinson here, and I think he's going to fit in perfectly, and the players are going to love him.
Based on the people that you talk to, Jeff, both in the athletic department and on your radio show, how would you say the enthusiasm going into this season compares to, let's say, the last couple? Because at least for me, since 2018, I haven't been all that enthusiastic about a team. Maybe the Nico Mannion, Josh Green, Zeke Naji team was interesting, but this team really has my attention.
It's interesting because you talk to fans and they're just kind of like, oh yeah, basketball season's here. And I'm not quite understanding like where that's coming from. There are still like 6,000 tickets available for the Red Blue game, which is unheard of. I mean, I've been going to Red Blue since midway through the Lute Olson era, and those games were always sold out. And under Sean Miller, they were always sold out. In 2016, it sold out in 14 minutes. I mean, I don't understand where this all of a sudden fan apathy is coming. I mean, you read all the vitriol about Sean Miller over the last 3-4 years, and that's now you're not getting a Final Four. We're never getting to a Final Four with him, and he's a cheater. Blah 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 blah. And now we get Tommy Lloyd, this super exciting, new head coach from a great program that's been to the postseason for the last 20 years, and all of a sudden people don't care. I don't understand what the problem is. I don't quite get it, to be honest with you, because I'm super excited about the season, and I know it's not just because I work for the team and I get to be there, for every home game. It's going to be a good basketball team, and I know they're not going to be preseason ranked in the top 25, and it's going to be a strange feeling for Wildcat fans. But I guarantee this team will be in the top 25 by the time conference season rolls around.
Yeah, I can't wait to get down to games. I mean, I was just looking at that schedule that came out today, the TV schedule. U of A plays ASU twice in a 3-week span in January. Can't wait. Hopefully be at both of those games, as well as I think a primetime game against I think it's USC on a Saturday. Yeah, for ESPN in February, which is great. I would just say this: expectations this year are all over the map. You said not ranked at the start of the season, but will be ranked at some point. I think that, a top 4 finish in the Pac-12 is possible, and maybe at best a Sweet 16 appearance. Is that asking too much of this squad or too little?
I think Sweet 16 might be going a little bit lofty. I mean, now you're saying that they're one of the top 16 teams in the country, and with a first-year head coach, who's never been a head coach before technically, even though he ran that program at Gonzaga for the last 8 years. I think that might be setting a little bit too lofty expectations. And I tell people this has been my mantra for like the last 4 years: manage your expectations. People, if you manage your expectations, you're not going to get hurt. You're not going to be let down. I do think that if Arizona is allowed to qualify for postseason play this year, I believe they will have a good run at the Pac-12 tournament. I do believe that they are a tournament team. I think this is a top 25 team either at some point during the season or by the time season's end rolls around, they will finish as a top 25 team. Sweet 16s, again, you kind of got to get lucky, matchup situations, who knows? The NCAA in all their wisdom, I guarantee will put us in Gonzaga's bracket with a second-round matchup against Mark Few.
Yep.
So that will be interesting to see.
Well, coming up next, let's talk to Steve Robinson. Or Shane had a chance to sit down with Steve Robinson, new assistant coach that, of course, our friend Jeff Dean absolutely is glad to have on staff, as are all of us. Jeff, thank you, first of all, for joining us, and we'll have you again on soon. And now it's time to hear what Steve Robinson thinks. You're in Wildcat Country.
Very happy to be joined by one of the newest members of the Arizona Wildcats men's coaching staff, and certainly the most experienced member of that staff, Steve Robinson, who joined Tommy Lloyd's staff about a month ago after spending nearly 20 years at North Carolina. Steve, we really appreciate you taking time to join us. Eric isn't available, my co-host for this one, but I'm excited to chat with you. Now, I just want to start off by asking, you've been in Tucson for, I think, about a month now. Have you had any time to settle in, or has it been just nonstop recruiting for you?
No, it's been pretty hectic, in terms of trying to get acclimated to everything, when you jump right in the middle of almost the middle of a recruiting period. It's just, you're playing catch up. So I'm playing catch up right now with everything, and, in between trying to, find a place to live and trying to, manipulate how I'm move from one area to the next. And,
right.
It's just, after spending 18 years at North Carolina, it's not one of those things where you can just pick up and go. So it just takes some time, but
Still living out of a hotel right now, or?
Yeah, I'm doing that. So I'm living out of a suitcase. I got half my clothes here in the locker room and places like that. So it's fine.
Life of an assistant coach, I guess, right?
Yeah. That's the way it happens. But I hadn't experienced this one in a while. So,
Right. Yeah. First big change for you in a long time.
Yeah.
Same with Coach Lloyd, as it turns out. And I had a chance to cover the 2017 Final Four in Glendale, which of course culminated with you in North Carolina beating Tommy Lloyd Zags. Has that come up at all since you joined the team?
Oh, I think we've, had some discussions about that. It was certainly a great time period for us at North Carolina, and, not so great outcome for them. But it was, that just kind of cemented our friendships and, our style of play. Because again, it just, both teams like to throw the ball inside to the big guys, and both teams like to run and push the ball up and down the floor. And, and I've known Mark Few for a long time. And, and I just think that just the respect level just increased volumes, from having those opportunities to play in the NCAA tournament in previous years, as well as to get to the Final Four and have to play each other in the national championship game too.
So tell me about how this opportunity came about. Who reached out to who? How did this all come together for your opportunity to come out here to Tucson?
Well, Tommy and I chatted, and about the position. And so it just, one thing kind of led to the other in terms of our conversation about the job and, having a position that became available. And so then we talked about it, and, and then he and I just discussed it a few times, and, it just seemed right. I wasn't ready to retire and by any means. And, North Carolina decided to go in a different direction there. And so with that, it just seemed right. I've said this all along, that I have a lot more to give to the game of college basketball, and I have a lot of information that I think I can share with people. And, so it just seemed like it was a perfect timing for me. I'd been off for pretty much about 4 months, and I was just kind of inching toward, well, I guess I'll retire or I'll do something else. And then this opportunity presented itself. And, I have a great deal of respect for Tommy, and I think he's going to do a great job. He's enthusiastic. He's very thoughtful, well planned out, precise kind of guy. And, and the other thing is he's very comfortable in his skin. He knows what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. And that's a good thing. And, because a lot of guys would be afraid to hire somebody who's been around the block as many years as I've been, and for fear factor. But he was very comfortable. He has been very comfortable about what he wants to do. And, my job is to just try to help him and help our program be the most successful program that it can be. And, hopefully my experience will matter and be very helpful to him as we move forward.
The reception seems to be universally positive, at least from what I've seen with Tommy Lloyd deciding to bring you on board. Give me an overall assessment of this team, and you've gotten to know them over the last few weeks. So what do you like about the players on this team?
Well, I like our depth. I think we can have some depth and, in terms of different positions and what we do. I think we could be a very good rebounding team. It's something you got to emphasize on a daily basis. And it's something that, my background, we've always been good rebounding teams at North Carolina and Kansas, and just trying to emphasize that and try to make that happen here as well. And as long as with our pace, we have some guys that are returning, but they don't necessarily have 3-year, 4-year experience and the quality minutes. So we're a little young in that regards. But when you bring a new coach in, new style of play, everybody's young. The whole system is young, and and trying to put in the culture, how we want to do things, and getting them to learn that and understand that. I think that's all an important part of it, and they've been really good at. They're willing to learn so far, and they have put forth the effort to try to pick up new things and how we want to do things, and really the response has been, I think, overwhelmingly positive right now.
When you're out recruiting, what kind of guys are you looking for? Just beyond talent, what is a Steve Robinson kind of basketball player?
Well, I think character counts, ability. You gotta have some guys that play. That's probably the number one thing right there, is just, certainly the ability part of it. And then I think the character and the skill level at what positions he's looking for and what he thinks he needs in each and every position. At the end of the day, it's not about what I want. It's about what Tommy wants.
Sure.
And what he feels fits his team. And, and I just have to go out and work along those lines to try to help put in front of him the type of players that I think he would enjoy coaching, and the type of players that would enjoy our system and how we want to play, and that can be successful in the style of play.
We obviously don't know what kind of penalties could still be brought down on this program based on everything that happened several years ago. I know it's kind of a tricky situation right now. I don't even know how much you've been recruiting to this point, but how do you address that situation with potential recruits, or is that even something that comes up?
Well, I think people are going to try to find a way to make it come up. Somebody, your opposition or whomever it is, they're going to make it come up. But, I think it's one of those things that it's a little bit out of our control. We feel good about things in terms of, what has been established, what is being done from an administrative standpoint. And all we can do is day to day go in there and do the best job we can and hope that things will come out in our favor when it's all said and done. But again, it's out of our control. So right. I just go in here and work every day, and just like I'm proceeding with what I need to do in the hopes that everything will be fine. Right.
That's all you can do. I understand.
Sure.
Any similarities between Chapel Hill and Tucson? Both college towns, both big basketball towns, obviously. Any big similarities? Just, I know you're still started getting your feet wet down in Tucson, but have you noticed anything?
You summed it up. It's both is college town. I've been doing this for over 38 years, and so I've been around a lot of college towns. Most of the places I've been have been college towns. And so you get to see that, in terms of the community and how they embrace the university and how important the university is to the community. So I get to see that. I will tell you that I look at the building here, and it really does remind me a lot of Allen Fieldhouse in Kansas. There are a lot of striking similarities in terms of the buildings, and as I go around the facility and I look, it's kind of eerie in terms of the similarities between these two buildings. That's for sure.
I feel like most Arizona basketball fans believe that this program is perceived as a top program across the country. And I would agree with that. But I'm interested to get your perspective coming from one of the best programs in the country and coming from the other side of the country. Yeah. How would you say Arizona basketball is perceived nationally?
Well, I think it's one of the top 10 programs in all of college basketball. I feel very lucky. As an assistant coach, I've worked at the University of Kansas, University of North Carolina, and now I have a chance to work at the University of Arizona. I feel like I've worked at 3 of the top blue blood programs in all of college basketball, and I don't think there's many guys that can say that. I don't know if I've just been lucky, good, whatever it is, but I've been very fortunate to have had an opportunity, and this one excites me because I've never really been out and lived out in the West. And so this is a new opportunity, which is a great time period for me in terms of the enthusiasm and the things that to kind of, re-energize you and get you going a little bit. So it's a change. It's a big change, after spending 18 years at Chapel Hill to come out to Tucson. And but I'm excited about it. And I just think that it's one of the top programs in all of college basketball and can be one of the top and has been for a long time. Coach Olson and what job that he did, Fred Snowden, before that, and it just, you think about the basketball program, it has tradition. And a program that has tradition and winning culture, you see that in terms of the former players and what they how they feel about the university, how they feel about their basketball program. And, and I think those are big stepping stones that help you reach a level of greatness with your program.
You looking forward to being able to wear shorts in the winter out here?
I'm wearing shorts today, so man, I really, it'll be a big change in terms of the time periods that there have been some places they got pretty cold. Spent 5 years in Florida in Tallahassee, so right. I had a chance to do that some down there as well too. So I think it'll be great. I'm looking forward to it, and just. I spend more time in shorts anyway because our game's an indoor game. That's and right. So I'm in the gym for the most part. And it's not like I get a chance just to go hang outside the whole time period during the course of the day. So we spend a lot of hours in the gym covering things on a daily basis.
All right, Coach, we appreciate your time very much. Welcome to Tucson. Hope you get settled in soon. Would love to have you back on the show once you get settled in. Thanks so much for taking time to join us again, and safe travels.
Shane, thank you, and look forward to coming back on and doing it again a little bit later on during the course of the year. All
right? Shane, first of all, let's start with Jeff's interview. Great to have he and Steve Robinson on the show. Talk about an action-packed show. First of all, with Jeff, I asked him that after watching the Oregon game, if he believed Arizona would win a football game this season, and he said yes. And I asked how many games they would win this season, and he also replied yes. So Shane, I will ask you a similar question. Will Arizona win a football game this season?
Yes.
Will they win multiple games this season? Notice how I changed it up there.
You did. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting just to parrot Jeff's answer. That was shrewd. That was shrewd.
Thank you.
Let me put it this way. I think they have a good chance to win at least 2 at this point, and that's both on the road. But Colorado and Washington State, I think, at least at times, look worse than Arizona has. Colorado especially, I think I would put Arizona's 19 points a game offense up against Colorado's right now. And then you mentioned that you look at the Territorial Cup game. Would I be bold enough to pick Arizona on the road after ASU just beat them by 6 or 3 points? Absolutely not. But off-field stuff keeps percolating there. Maybe it translates to on-field. It's shaping up to be a classic situation where Wildcat fans are put through the ringer, and then you have the ending where we feel good about how the season went, even though it was terrible. So yes, I think they will win at least one game. As of now, like I said, I would pick them to beat Colorado. I reserve the right to change my mind about that, but I don't think they're going to go 0-12 at this point.
All right, Shane, I'm going to sound like a hypocrite because last week I said Arizona's going to go 0-12. I just have a gut feeling, and I'll probably change this over and over this season, that Arizona will win a home game this season. I don't know against whom, but I think they're going to win a home game. Something tells me this. If UCLA loses to ASU, and we're going to make picks here shortly, then they could be on a big slide. So we'll talk about that. All right, so you had Steve Robinson on. I'm sorry I wasn't able to join for that interview. I just love the enthusiasm that Coach brought along. To me, it appeared he's not just taking a job to continue his career. It's like he really wants to be in Tucson.
Yeah, and funny story real quick. We did the interview through Zoom, and we couldn't get the audio to work on his end. And so TJ Benson, another assistant coach, came to the rescue and helped to set up the audio so we got it to work. So shout out to Coach Benson for doing that. He was on our show a couple months ago, and it was nice to say hi to him. But yeah, no, Steve was great. It's bizarre that no one else, apparently he was unemployed for months and no one reached out to him, or just didn't have an offer that he thought was interesting enough. So maybe people thought he was past his prime and let's go with the younger guys. And you almost felt bad for him, and it was kind of a head scratcher. But North Carolina's been good recently, and I'm sure he has a lot to do with that. So I'm thrilled. I think, like I mentioned with Jeff Dean, I don't know anyone who doesn't like the staff that Tommy Lloyd's put together. Aside from Jason Terry leaving for a better opportunity, and I certainly don't feel bad about that. I don't think I have any complaints about his staff. I think he's put together good coaches, good recruiters, and I think you're going to see results there. Maybe after a little while, I think Tommy Lloyd's got to get his feet wet as a head coach. People, 4- and 5-star guys, a lot of them I think are going to have to see how he does as a coach, maybe see how the whole FBI stuff finally blows over, how that all shakes out. But I think the recruiting at the very least is going to be there. And Jeff got me excited. I'll tell you what, he got me excited about basketball. And he's good at that. He's good at putting a positive spin on things, but he made a lot of good points. Guys putting on weight, getting better in the offseason. I think, like I said before, Ben Matherin and Azuolas Tubelis can both take a step forward in their sophomore seasons. You have 2 stars. That's really all you need in college hoops to be competitive. So Steve Robinson, again, was a great ad. Really appreciate him taking time to chat with us, and I'm excited for the Red Blue game.
Well, it's, you talk about a career path, going from a longtime assistant at UNC to Arizona. I mean, those are 2, you can call Arizona blue blood, or maybe in the second tier of blue bloods. I think
Kansas
we probably
before
talked
that.
about that. Yeah, I mean, the guy really, you talk about having a career where you're working at not small schools. I mean, he's really done pretty well for himself. It's a great hire for Arizona. All right. Switching it up, we are very excited to bring back, we're bringing the whole band back together, Shane, from the original start of Wildcat Country back when it was on radio. Now it is back now is in podcast form and in video form, as we well know. And we are very pleased to bring in one of the old, people who was on the show to start and who now is a sponsor and has done phenomenal in her career, and that's Megan Coghlan, who is the founder of Backcourt Marketing and our longtime friend. So, Megan, glad to have you here. And first of all, I just want to ask you about Backcourt Marketing. Just tell us about it in your words and why it's a good fit for businesses who need social media help.
Yeah, well, it's good to be back, guys. Always good to see you too. And yeah, we're here for any business that needs to be on social media, which is almost every business these days. So, we're here to be your full support team for anybody who just doesn't have the time to do it themselves, which is also almost everybody. We're there to take over and do it for you and do it right.
We talk about, refer a client to Backcourt Marketing and get rewarded. Just tell folks a little bit more about that if you could.
Oh, yeah, we're happy to help out anybody who gives us a referral. We have a percentage program. So especially any other marketing agencies out there, we partner really well with them, and we're able to make really good deals with them and also supplement their own services and be able to be a partner to their clients and provide better services to their clients as well.
Well, we are glad to have you as a sponsor on the show. And now we're putting you on the spot. And for our weekly college football picks. Now, normally we'd have U of A in there, and that is usually a free win if you pick the game correctly, which apparently I have not done twice this year. But now we are not picking Arizona games, but we have 10 other games to pick this weekend. So, Megan, I'm going to start with you. We're going to do some non-Pac-12 before we get into the 5-game Pac-12 slate. Michigan, who is undefeated, takes on Wisconsin, who has looked like absolute garbage. Their offense has rivaled Arizona's this year. I'm actually not lying about that. The game is at Camp Randall Stadium, the whole jump around thing. Are you taking Michigan in a slight upset or going with the home favorite in Wisconsin?
I'll go with the home favorite Wisconsin, though I think it's going to be a close one.
Shane, how about you?
Yeah, I picked the Wisconsin-Notre Dame game pretty darn wrong last week. And Michigan looks a little better than I expected anyway. If this game was in Ann Arbor, I'd probably go with the Wolverines, but I'm going to take Wisconsin. I think they're going to bounce back at home.
I don't really like Michigan, but I just what I've seen from Wisconsin, as I said, Graham Mertz looks like he'd be a perfect fit in Arizona's offense because he doesn't know how to read defenses or throw the ball accurately. So I'm going to go with Michigan on the road, and Jim Harbaugh gets the Michigan fan base fired up and then lets them down every year. This is no surprise. This will be no surprise yet again. Okay, Arkansas and Georgia, a battle of top 10 teams, and who would have predicted that a couple months ago? Shane, I think we're all going to take Georgia here. The line is almost 3 touchdowns. Do you think the game will be close, or do you think Georgia wins in a blowout?
Yeah, speaking of games I got wrong, I underestimated Arkansas last week against A&M. Their starting quarterback now and their wide receiver are banged up. Expected to play, I think, but it'd be difficult to pick against Georgia at home, even if those two were healthy. So I'm going to go with Georgia, and I actually think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game.
Megan, close game or blowout?
Maybe not full blowout, but closer to a blowout. But I picked Georgia for sure. I think they're healthier. They've been on a good run against some really good teams, and they're almost unstoppable at this point.
Sticking in the SEC, Ole Miss is traveling to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. So Ole Miss, every time these teams play, it's like a ridiculously high-scoring game, and now you got the whole Lane Kiffin and Nick Saban thing. Once again, we know Alabama's going to win this football game. Megan, will it be a close game or a blowout?
It'll be a fun game, so I'll go with closer, but I think Alabama's going to do it. They've got a better run game and great receiving.
Shane, does Ole Miss stand a prayer here, or is this going to be another Alabama snooze fest?
Yeah, this is really going to be Ole Miss's first real competition this season, and I think they're going to get smacked in the mouth. Bama's going to roll all over Lane Kiffin's guys in this one, I think.
I think this one's going to be closer, Shane. You know who the Heisman favorite right now is? Matt Corral, the quarterback for Ole Miss. This is really a chance for him to go Johnny Manziel and propel those Ole Miss Rebels to a substantial upset. You never know, but I think this game's a lot closer than one would think. All right, we're going to do one more SEC one, then we'll get to the other big game, non-Pac-12, and that is Auburn and LSU. It's a fun game. Every year there's always some kind of twist and turn. I don't think either of these teams are that great. I'm going to take LSU to win this football game. Shane, would you agree? Or which Tigers are you going to take?
Yeah, this is going to be my first road pick of the weekend. I was impressed with Auburn, even in defeat against Penn State. It's clear this isn't the same LSU team that Joe Burrow led to a national title a couple of years ago. I know Auburn struggled a bit with Georgia State, which isn't good. I think it was mostly because they were looking ahead to this game. So I like Auburn on the road.
Megan, which of the Tigers are you going to choose? Auburn with Shane or LSU with me?
I'm with you, Eric. I'm going with LSU. They just seem like the better overall team this year, and Auburn just hasn't seemed right like they usually are.
Once again, Megan makes a great pick. Sorry, Shane. The other big game that I think is really fascinating, this is the one that I consider the game of the weekend here. Cincinnati, who is a legitimate top 10 team who I think, should be given consideration for a Final Four appearance in college football, travels to Notre Dame and is a favorite going into South Bend. Megan, this one looks like a toss-up. Who are you picking?
I've got Notre Dame. They just seem like they've got more of the right pieces in place. Their wins have been more reliable against some true competition this year. But Cincinnati will put up a fight for sure, but still going with Notre Dame.
Shane, are you agreeing with Megan here?
Well, Cincinnati's had a week off to prepare for this game, and I'm tempted to pick them. I think Notre Dame has hit its stride after a shaky start that included a near loss to Toledo at home. As long as Jack Cohn plays, I'm going to go with the Irish.
Well, I'm taking Cincinnati. I'm going the old double not so fast on both of you. I think Cincinnati is that good. I think they are a legitimate team that is going to go undefeated if they win this football game, and I don't think Oregon will. And I think Cincinnati, somehow, if they win this game, will end up in a semifinal game, which is crazy to say, but we'll go with that. All right, so in the Pac-12, we'll kind of clump these two together. You have two notable road favorites here, Oregon at Stanford, and Stanford didn't look real good last week at home against UCLA. That was not a good pick for me. And then Shane had picked against USC. He picked Oregon State, which was a great pick. I thought USC was the lock of the weekend, and they got smoked at home by Oregon State. So I'm picking both these road teams to go in Oregon to beat Stanford and USC to beat Colorado. Megan, who are you going with, Oregon and USC, or are you going differently?
Yeah, it just gets more unpredictable when we get into the Pac-12. But I'm going with Oregon, first of all, because it's usually other Pac-12 teams, such as Arizona, that have more of a rich history of upsetting teams like Oregon. So I'll stick with them on that one. And then with USC and Colorado, I'm going with Colorado. Just because yeah, I mean, they have so much to take advantage of. They're kind of kicking a dead horse here, so they just have a lot more potential there. And, I hope USC can get out of their rut, but we'll see.
So, Shane, you said Colorado is the one team Arizona can beat. So, obviously, I assume you're not picking them over USC, right?
I'm going to go the opposite of Megan on both of these picks. Yeah, I think USC wins big. I don't think they're going to Colorado can't move the ball. So I'm going to go with the Trojans. I think they're going to take out some frustration on a very bad Colorado team. I think Arizona exposed Oregon a bit up front on both sides of the ball. I like the way Stanford matches up with them. And like our buddy Jeff Dean says, the Pac-12 is good at canceling each other out and avoiding the college football playoff appearance. So I'm going to go with the Cardinal for the upset.
Whoa, Shane going with another crazy upset this way. I don't even know what adjectives to describe it, but I like it. Shane picking the home dog. Okay, there's a home favorite, and it's hard for me. This is Washington at Oregon State. So Oregon State's coming off this huge win in Southern California last week, and Washington was my team that I thought would basically win the Pac-12 and go to the Rose Bowl, and they definitely don't look like that. Oregon State, shockingly, is a small favorite at home. I'm going with Washington here. I think the Huskies are about ready to round into stride. I'm going to guess that Shane is not going to agree with me.
You are going to guess incorrectly, my friend. I think the Beavers are going to come down to earth a bit this weekend. I think that win was more about, to me, the story is all usually about one team or the other. I don't think it was so much about Oregon State having a great win. I think it was more about USC's ineptitude. Washington isn't as bad as we've seen early in the season. I agree with you. I think they're going to hit their stride. I think they're going to go into Corvallis and get the win.
Megan, this is another toss-up game. Shane and I are going with Washington. Do you agree with us, or are you picking the Beavers?
I'm going with the Beavers. I just feel like they want to win more because I'm remembering last year's game was a real close one.
All right. Well, there we go. And by the way, just to update the standings, Shane and I, since we've been doing this the first 4 weeks, we are both 23-17, which is nothing to brag about. And we're talking straight up picks, which is, Shane, it's not good. You were 6-2 last week, so then you were able to make up that ground on me. I was 5-3. So, okay, we'll see how it plays out this week as we have some differences. 2 more games to pick in the Pac-12. I think this one we can all pretty much just agree, not really much insight here. Washington State at Cal. I don't think the Cougars are very good. I don't think Cal's that great, but I'm going to take Cal here. Shane in agreement, Megan in agreement, Cal?
Yeah, I'm going to go Cal. They're 1-3, but they're really not that far off from being 4-0. And I don't think they're 4-0 worthy necessarily, but they've lost 3 very close games, including to Washington in overtime last weekend. Again, I think Washington State, as of now, looks like one of 2 teams in the Pac-12 Arizona could beat. So definitely going to go with Cal at home, probably pretty big.
Megan, you agree, Cal?
Yeah, same here. I'll have to lock up my doors, watch out for Washington State. But, Yeah, I'm going with Cal, but it's just been a long time since Washington State has beat Cal at home. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout or anything.
Yeah, for those who are thinking, why does the name Megan Coghlan sound familiar? Just do a Google search for Megan Coghlan, Washington State, and I'll just leave it at that for you.
I don't know. I don't know why. Do I need? Are we going to talk about this, or do I have to?
We'll talk after the show. We'll talk after the show.
Okay. Yeah, because I do not know this. Okay, so normally in this space, the last game that we talk about is Arizona against somebody. Well, fortunately, Arizona can't lose this week, so Shane and I will actually have a show where we're not talking about a loss, as crazy as that is to sound, as it sounds. So the last game is ASU at UCLA, and why I think this is interesting. Obviously, we all want to root against ASU, no doubt about that. But UCLA coming off a nice win against Stanford after that really crushing loss against Fresno State. But next week, UCLA travels to Tucson. So if they lose this weekend, what does that say? Next weekend, does Arizona have a better chance? Does Arizona have a worse chance? I don't know. Shane, give me your thoughts on this. ASU at UCLA, you picking the Sun Devils in the upset or the Bruins to continue their early season hot streak?
Well, ASU took care of Colorado at home last weekend, but that's really not saying much. Like I said, I'd probably pick Arizona to beat Colorado right now, at least on the neutral field. I don't know about in Boulder, but UCLA's playing better right now. They're at home. It's pretty simple for me. I'm going to go with the Bruins.
All right, Megan. UCLA, you can't pick ASU, can you?
No, I can't. I'm going with UCLA too. They just seem to be clicking a lot better. And again, they'll be at home, so it makes more sense.
A lot of people are thinking this is a trendy upset pick with ASU, but I'm on Wildcat country. Can I really pick ASU as an underdog on the road? No, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I'm picking UCLA, and I'm really praying that UCLA wins this game, because if they do, ASU already would have 2 losses, and that would kind of derail them a bit. You know what I mean? They had these expert Rose Bowl and all this stuff. If they win this game, okay, the Pac-12 South doesn't look so good now. UCLA would then have their first loss. ASU would be in first place in the Pac-12 South. I just have a feeling UCLA is going to get it done. I think it's going to be close, but I think UCLA takes care of business. Well, Megan, we always appreciate you joining us here on Wildcat Country, but how can people reach you at Backcourt Marketing?
Anytime. They could check us out at backcourtmarketing.com. They could also email team@backcourtmarketing.com. Also, could give us a phone call at 480-744-6173.
And there you have it. And we are very glad to have you in Backcourt Marketing as a sponsor for Wildcat Country. Want to thank our buddy Jeff Dean for joining us in the first segment. Always great analysis from him and optimism. And Coach Steve Robinson, who really brings this enthusiasm to Arizona's staff that I don't think we've seen in a while. Let's just say that. Really cool to have him on board. So glad that he was able to join you, Shane. For my co-host, Shane Dale, I am Eric Cohen. Thank you for listening. And as always, bear down.